RGG Studios have been my favorite game developers for years now, and lately it feels like they're trying their absolute hardest to make me change my mind on that. I got into the Yakuza series with zero, and while I went in expecting just pure chaos and silliness, what I got on top of that was a massive variety of minigames, a thoughtful and emotional crime drama, a portrayal of Japan that was both goofily exaggerated and immersive. It was instantly one of the weirdest and most perfect games I'd ever played. I quickly moved on to the Kiwamis, then 3, 4, and the rest of the series, and I was not let down at any single point. Not until Gaiden, but we'll talk about that later. For the past few years that I've been binging these games, I've quite literally been eating good. RGG has such a consistently quality catalog of games that I felt they could do no wrong. Their reusal of assets meant that they could put out new games faster than pretty much any AAA studio. Normally, I'm not a fan of annual releases for stuff like COD or whatnot, but RGG was doing it in the most tasteful way possible. They were still adding new mechanics and minigames with each entry. Their writing was always exactly what I wanted and expected, and the fact that they reused maps and assets built a sort of familiarity in me. Kamurocho, Sotenbori, all those places started feeling comfortable. But something has changed. RGG are no longer the saints that everyone saw them as, and that's due to their repeated errors in judgment. Starting with the Kaguya controversy, which is obviously the biggest thing that RGG is catching shit for right now. Just a quick summary in case you're not aware. For the upcoming Kiwami 3 game, they recast Hamazaki's voice actor to a guy called Kaguya, who assaulted a hostess in 2019, I think. This has led to the whole community being outraged at the devs and bombarding their social media posts with hashtag remove Kaguya. This situation feels like it goes against everything that RGG stood for. We've seen so many big game studios make very similar mistakes like this, where they got caught doing some weird shit in the workplace or hiring someone problematic, but none of those hit quite as painfully as this Kaguya controversy does. It feels like a betrayal of everything they've established in their games over the years. RGG have never been afraid to reveal what they think about certain things, and assault is something that they've always very deeply condemned multiple times, but the main one being that in the very first Yakuza game, Sohei Dojima gets killed at the start of the game because he was attempting to assault Yumi, and he is clearly portrayed as a villain. He's not portrayed as someone that didn't deserve to die. I don't think any of us felt any remorse for him after we'd heard about what he had done, and RGG Studios created this safe space for very like-minded individuals. Like, their games have also had a lot of commentary on things like trans people and Kiryu actively defending being who you want to be in life because it's your life. That kind of stuff. That's the kind of audience that they garnered. So the reason why this Kaguya stuff just hurts so deeply is because it implies one of two things. Either RGG have never believed the ideologies they've been spouting in their games, or they can turn a blind eye to bad stuff as long as it benefits them. And the other thing that confuses me about this is they have fired people for way less. There has been multiple instances of voice actors getting kicked off projects for a minor drug scandal or something like that. And while I don't want to blame an entire country for it, I feel like this is a very Japanese business type of thing to do, because it's happened time and time again with the Japanese studios where they will forgive people with assault records, but they will not tolerate stuff like being impolite or doing drugs or something like that. It just feels like they have their priorities completely wrong. And I hope you don't take that the wrong way. I am not insulting the country of Japan. I am just observing a pattern I've seen several times before. RGG have also got their monetization bullshit they've been pushing hard lately. Harder than usual, I mean. The monetization stuff on its own is whatever, but it points to a bigger problem with where where RGG and Sega are heading. The big drama was Infinite Wealth locking New Game Plus behind a paywall, and I'm pretty sure it's still like that. I don't think they ever fixed it. I'm playing through Infinite Wealth right now, and I promised myself that once I finish all the mainline games, I'd replay them all on New Game Plus. So having to pay extra money for a deluxe edition just to access a feature that's been in every other Yakuza game for free? That's some bullshit. Listen, cosmetics and outfits behind a paywall? Fine, I don't care. They don't affect my core experience. But New Game Plus is a default ass feature. It's been in these games so many times before. Suddenly charging for it is just so scummy. And that's what bugs me so much about modern RGG. They're getting way too corporate. It doesn't feel like they care much about writing good stories or creating shit anymore. It feels like they're just after our wallets. And I can't blame a business for being a business, but it does feel like a very drastic change they've had recently, right? Not to mention the recent controversy of them delisting Yakuza 0 of all games, forcing newcomers to buy the director's cut, an overpriced and arguably worse version of the original in some regards. Delisting games has always been a scummy thing. Even the biggest corporate bootlicker wouldn't be able to give me a good reason why removing a product from the store page needs to happen. This just reinforces what I'm gonna talk about a lot in this video, how RGG is heading in a very corporate direction and keep making all the decisions that would probably please a shareholder, but not a customer. One thing that I always felt weird about was the XQC and Drewski promotional stuff. As Infinite Wealth was coming out, RGG sponsored an XQC stream and gave him, I think, early access to Infinite Wealth. And to provide context, XQC is not really a story game type of person. He is more of a competitive multiplayer type of guy, and because he's not that type of person, the majority of his audience are also not into single player story games, which Yakuza Infinite Wealth is. And it just makes no sense from a business perspective to sponsor an XQC stream. It feels like they didn't think it through any more than, oh, this guy is the biggest streamer around. Let's pay him so we can get all the attention. I really highly doubt that most people into XQC streams are going to go out and buy Infinite Wealth after seeing him play it, especially since he just didn't understand the combat, he didn't care for the story, he had no passion for this game. Why on earth would that convince his audience to go out and buy an 80-hour JRPG? It just feels like yet another betrayal because RGG Studios have such a devout fan base and they have so many niche content creators that love their games that they could have sponsored for this instead. That way it would reach their core fans and show support for the creators who have been covering their games for so many years. But instead, they chose this shit. It feels like they're trying to take Yakuza in a very mainstream direction, but they're super oblivious about how to make it happen. The Drewski promo thing as well. Comedian guy you might have seen around, Drewski was featured in an ad for Infinite Wealth. And it makes no sense why they would do that. He has literally nothing to do with the Yakuza games. There is zero correlation. If they wanted to make some more ads, there was always, Danny fucking Trejo, who is actually in the game. I believe it was purely for the fact that Drewski was really blowing up at the time and all that RGG saw were the numbers. They think it's enough to sponsor random celebrities and hope for the best. It feels so similar to how AAA studios think pouring money into any old IP will guarantee success. The tonal shift that recent RGG games have had is also another thing I'm not a big fan of. People have been saying that the games are getting too silly and that silliness is starting to outweigh the serious crime drama stuff. The older games had a balance, which feels like has slightly tilted on the scales recently. I loved Yakuza 7. It was a breath of fresh air and a nice break from the fucking massive Kiryu saga. But hot take, the story was weak compared to other entries. What carried it for me were the characters. They were so charismatic and funny, and going on this journey with a group of friends felt awesome, but the actual plot was all over the place. It feels like it didn't know what it wanted to be. Individual scenes and arcs were all well written, but if you zoomed out and looked at the game as a whole, it felt like it was a bunch of short stories squashed into one big game. Some of you might say that makes sense since it's Ichiban's story and he's not as serious as Kiryu, but I still think the silliness got a tad bit out of hand. I haven't played Pirate Yakuza yet, but from what I've heard, it's basically a Yakuza game without a story. Some people might be happy about that, but to me, that feels like a cheap excuse for not putting in effort. I've heard there's nothing of value story-wise, and even though I'm excited for these Gaiden spin-offs like this one, I don't think story should be sacrificed just because it's a silly side game. You're still charging money for it, so you shouldn't be allowed to slack on the writing. It feels like recently RGG has become aware of Yakuza's reputation as this meme, no context, silly series, and they're leaning into it hard. I'm sure you've seen the "what is Yakuza even about" comments, and I have a theory that RGG are looking for more of that. I've seen many people have the take that Yakuza isn't about the main story, and that just makes me so mad as someone who has continued to invest time in this series for all these years because I love the story so much. I have shed many a tear for these games. I want to know where Kiryu and Ichiban go next, what they discover about themselves, the people they meet on their journey. Yakuza is such a great series because it spans years and years, and you can see the evolution of not just the characters, but the world and the different factions within it. Having the opinion that Yakuza's appeal doesn't come from the main story just feels like you're not a true fan. You're here because you saw some funny clips on TikTok and the silly pirate guy. I'm still really optimistic about Stranger Than Heaven, but I can't say the same about Yakuza. With the direction that they've been heading in since Like a Dragon, they're kind of losing me as someone who enjoyed the more serious tone of the Kiryu games. Some of you might love this new direction, and that's totally fine. It's all a matter of preference. And to clarify, I'm perfectly okay with RGG's comedy. I'm no party pooper, but it feels like for a while, certain parts of Yakuza games that I've loved have been getting toned down. I love Ichiban's games, and seeing his dynamic with Kiryu is super interesting, but I don't think RGG should be scared to sacrifice some of the serious writing just because Ichiban is not a serious person, you know? Plus, the Zero Director's Cut obviously has the retcon bullshit, which is just another sign that the devs are scared to be serious with their games. They want their stories to be as low stakes as possible, and while I wasn't initially pissed off about certain retcons, it's getting to that point where it's a little bit overdone and cause for concern. And by the way, I would like to do something that RGG would never dare to do. I want to address the elephant in the room. There is this video by Charlie Is Talking that just came out with a very similar thumbnail to this current video, and he also makes some very similar points about the tonal shift of Yakuza. I would just like to say, I did not copy this fella. I begun writing the script for this video about 4 days before his video dropped. Also, I did post these thumbnail concepts in a Discord server days earlier. I know it's not concrete evidence, but I shall just have to give you my word and nothing more. Great video from Charlie though. I recommend you check it out. And one more thing, this video is sponsored by myself. If my channel has made you feel some type of way, do consider checking out channel memberships to show support. There are a few benefits to becoming a channel member, which I will let you read about yourself. That's all, thank you. Gaiden was the first Yakuza game where I felt really quite cheated out of my money. The ending is one of, if not the best scene in RGG history, and it's not even close. But everything before that ending is super average. Sometimes just straight up boring or bad. The agent style kinda sucks. The side content is plentiful but very average for the most part. The levels that you have to fight through are generic looking. I think the art direction is super cool. The cargo ship place reminded me a lot of the Golden Castle from Yakuza 2, so of course I appreciated that. And the final fight is great both thematically and mechanically, but the rest of the game is easily one of the weakest I've played from them. I'm not a big fan of Kiwami 1 either. It's one of my least favorite Yakuza games, but even that felt like it was trying to do something. Me disliking it is not due to it being a bad game. It's still excellent, but more so it's due to it not matching up to my enjoyment of the other games. On the other hand, Gaiden is bad because it doesn't try to do anything. It feels like the first game where the corporate RGG symbiote fully took over, and a lot of you are denying how bad it is just because you like the ending. I get it, those final few cutscenes are absolute cinema, but come on now, it was such a pain to reach that point. To me, the last savior of modern RGG were the Judgment games. Lost Judgment is my favorite RGG game of all time because it felt like the most well balanced in every aspect. It had the comedy, the drama, and thriller elements, the best Dragon Engine combat and gameplay by a mile, great side content, charismatic characters on par with Yakuza 7 and 8. This game didn't have a single weak area, it was just so well thought out and perfected. Hearing Judgment got cancelled was my first ever heartbreak in life. I get that they've got a lot going on their plate right now, mainline Like a Dragon games, Gaiden spin-offs, Virtua Fighter, Stranger Than Heaven, but cancelling Judgment just kind of came out of nowhere and felt bad. For years, it was like the Half-Life 3 of RGG games, where everyone would talk about when Found Judgment would be announced. Seeing an official statement that we'll never get another entry feels like RGG is just digging themselves deeper and deeper into their grave because they had this great world and characters that they're just abandoning. I've had discussions with people over the years theorizing about how Yagami would react when finally meeting someone like Kiryu or Ichiban, and while that still is a possibility, I'm afraid that Yagami will just be working a bar somewhere and have like 2 lines of dialogue. It just really sucks that Judgment ended up this way. RGG's annual release schedule is catching up to them. I've always hated when developers rush games out every year, but I never had a problem with RGG doing it because they were so consistently good. But now with Gaiden, Infinite Wealth, and Pirate Yakuza all getting very mixed reception, it is clear that production is moving way too fast and the writing is suffering because of it. Kiwami 3 is coming early next year, and I've seen some of the footage. I think the side content looks really good, even by RGG standards. The whole orphanage section seems to have been expanded, and now it's more of a dad simulator than ever before, but they stripped out all of the style that the original had, and I cannot look past that. Despite being so old, Yakuza 3 was easily one of the best looking entries even to this day, and the remake removes all that flair and makes it look like pretty much any other Dragon Engine game. I really have my doubts that Kiwami 3 will be anything more than average. I think they're just simply squeezing out too many games and are starting to get burnt out. I'm sure none of us would mind if they took a year and a half, maybe 2 years between games. Instead, they're sometimes dropping 2 games a year, which is just insane. I'll give them their credit. They've been doing a great job of it for a long time now, but their quality consistency is starting to jump all over the place. But even though I've got all these different issues with the state of RGG right now, I hate to say it, but they've got me in a tight chokehold. But they are testing my limits, my love for them right now. I'll probably still buy Kiwami 3, I'll grab it off CD keys or something, but it's just so annoying that they've got me locked in on this series, on this world, and all these amazing characters that they've created. I'll be playing purely out of habit because I have not been binging these games for all these years just to stop now. I made a video recently about how I'm not a fan of Nintendo. In that video, I talk about how Nintendo has a stupidly loyal fan base, which means they can get away with some terrible business decisions. But I have to be honest, I am in the exact same position with RGG Studios. They keep messing up, but I cannot stay away. I am a hypocrite and I'm not afraid to admit it. If you are curious to know why I've never been into Nintendo games, do check out this video and let me know your thoughts on this RGG drama. Do you think the disappointment is warranted or not? I'm gonna clock out now. See ya.